Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years, rocking my peers, bringing suckers to tears. Mama said, knock you out. That's right. It's me, Paul Markle, and I am back with the second hour of this week's episode of Student of the Gun Radio. And I want to acknowledge my my illustrious studio engineer over there who looks like he really wants to say something. He's got his cool studio headphones on there. Got the giant Mickey Mouse cans on his head, and he's leaning into his microphone, which makes me think he has something on his mind. Jared, is there something on your mind?
Well, there's a lot of things on my mind, but I'm sure you don't want to hear about all of them. I was just going to say, you said something about you were back, and I was just going to say, don't call it a comeback.
That's right. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. All right, folks, welcome back to this edition, to this new segment of Student of the Gun Radio. And this segment is brought to you by our good friends at Keltec Weapons and Colt Firearms. So thank you to Keltec and Colt for sponsoring Student of the Gun Radio. We're going to dive right into this because we have a whole lot to talk about during this segment. And in the news this last week, we, as we said, the Mexican thug, piece of human excrement, scumbag, illegal alien. I don't know if he's an illegal alien, if he's a member of the drug cartel, and he comes across the border and kills one of our Border Patrol agents. But he's a piece of human filth. A piece of human filth was finally sentenced this week. And he got a grand total of 30 years in prison for murdering Brian Terry, the Border Patrol agent. Now, why do you care about this, or why should you care about this? Well, number one, when an invader from a foreign country enters our country and murders a law enforcement official or any United States citizen, you should be concerned by that. But what makes this particular case unique is the fact that he was murdered by guns that were supplied to the Mexican drug cartel by whom? Well, by your good friends at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives. That's right. One of the Fast and Furious guns was the gun that killed Brian Terry. They recovered at the scene. And if you're not hip on Fast and Furious or Operation Wide Receiver, I don't know which rock you've been living under, but welcome to the party. And unfortunately, Brian Terry gave his life so that you in the United States, you citizens, you people that are supposed to be in charge of the nation, the bosses, you're supposed to be the boss. Brian Terry gave his life so that you would know about this. And you're like, well, did he deliberately do that? No, but he did sacrifice his life, and it was his sacrifice that brought this to light. And I would venture to say that if he had not been murdered and it come out that one of the guns that was used in his murder was a Fast and Furious gun, I don't know if we would even know about this today. I don't know if it would have been swept under the rug or kept quiet or kept out of the public eye. But the fact is it happened, and it happened in your country. And it's going to keep on happening until you take control of your nation back from the thugs and the dictators and the bureaucrats and the tyrants in your state and national capitals. Sorry if it hurts your feelings. Sorry if it interrupts Dancing with the Stars, but you need to do it because you are supposed to be the boss. And you're like, well, Paul, what is this whole Fast and Furious? What is this all about really? Well, you can avail yourself to that information very, very easily. Our good friend, Mike Detty, was one of the Arizona gun dealers who was recruited by the ATF to do just that thing, to basically supply guns to the Mexican gun cartel. They knew that these were bad people. They knew that they shouldn't have been, that guns should not have been sold to them by American gun dealers. But they green-lighted it. They made it happen during Wide Receiver and Fast and Furious. And if you want to read Mike's book, Jared will put the link up for you guys. You can go to studentofthegunradio.com. Remember, studentofthegunradio.com for all the show notes. And Jared will put the link up there for Mike's book. It's called Guns Across the Border. Now, Mike came to it from the aspect of a gun dealer that was directly involved in the situation. And when you read this book, you're going to be blown away. You're like, oh, I had no idea. Or what you've been told, what little you've been told in the news, by Fox or CNN or whomever, what little you've been told, you're going to find out the detailed stories from Mike's book. And after Mike's book was published, an ATF agent, a former ATF agent named John Dodson, released his book, and the ATF fought this hard. They tried to keep this book from getting released, and it's called The Unarmed Truth by John Dodson. And essentially, he details his personal involvement in Arizona with this program. And I'm not going to go into the specifics about the book, but if you want to know from somebody who was inside, and he started asking questions about it, and the upshot, what you'll probably know already, is once he started asking questions and saying, hey, this isn't right, they decided he was no longer a team player and he didn't need to be there anymore. And then when they found out that he was going to be releasing this book, he underwent, him and his family, a lot of harassment from the government, from his own agency, because he was going to release this book. And now John, he hasn't been on our show, but he was on Gun Talk. Our good friend Tom Gresham interviewed him about a month or so ago on his show. And one of the things, and this has really struck me, that John said, he said, people keep reporting Fast and Furious and Wide Receiver and this operation. They keep saying it was a failed program or there were mistakes that were made. And he said, that is a complete lie. It wasn't a failed program. He said the program, as they established it, as they set it up, it actually worked just as planned. He said their plan was to walk guns, military-style guns. These weren't select fire guns. These weren't actual military guns. They were, guns that you could buy as a citizen in Arizona, whether they're AKs or AR variants or M16 type variants that you could buy there, handguns as well. Well, they knew that these guys were dirty. They knew that they were cartel members. They knew that they should not be selling guns to these people, that they shouldn't allow them to buy them, that when the dealers called in to do their 4473 checks, they knew these guys were dirty. They absolutely did. They knew they were loading these guns up in cars and driving them down into Mexico. They knew it. They let it happen over and over and over again. And then when they got caught, they tried to make up these fantabulous lies about, we had a plan. And if you read Guns Across the Border, you'll see that their supposed plan to recover these was not only impractical, but almost impossible. It was a fantasy. The only time they recover guns is after they were used to commit crimes, to commit homicides. What good does that do? Oh, yeah. Well, we know now that this gun was used in a homicide. Congratulations. So if you want to avail yourself to that information, you can either pick up a copy of Guns Across the Border by Mike Detty or The Unarmed Truth by John Dodson, and be an educated citizen. Find out. Get as much source information as possible. But don't let them, and they've been trying really, really super hard to make you forget. That this happened. And like Dodson said, he said, this was not a failed operation. He said, it happened, it played out exactly as they planned for it to play out. So don't give them that cover. What they've been doing is they've been trying to run for cover saying, mistakes were made and errors were made because, to err is human and to forgive is divine. Bull crap. Don't believe it. Now, the reason that I was really upset or offended by this story is this Mexican thug got a 30-year sentence. Okay, and so you, as Johnny Citizen or Susie Citizen out there in the audience, you're thinking, well, good, 30 years is a lot. Well, yeah, on the face of it, you think, 30 years, that's a lot of time. Well, let me tell you, 30 years is not 30 years. All right, first of all, you should be executed. End of story. You come into our country as a drug cartel member to poison our citizens with your dope. And then when one of our law enforcement officers tries to stop you from entering our country to, peddle your dope, you murder him. And so you get 30 years. How about executed? Tell you what, folks, reverse it. Send an American citizen into Mexico to import something down there, have an American citizen murder a Mexican official, and let me know how long it takes for Mexico to execute that person. Probably not very long. But unfortunately, in the United States of America today, because we as citizens have abdicated so much of our authority to the government, we basically punted and said, just do what you want. We'll sit over here and play Xbox or, watch Dancing with the Stars. Prison sentences and time served for violence are not necessarily what they appear. And this study comes from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, and Jared will put the link up for you guys if you want to go ahead and take a look at it. But it turns out that, and it's a little bit dated, but this study was in 1992 that said that in 1992, 48% of violent felons served the sentence that they had received. So basically, less than half. The percentage of the sentence served for violent criminals was on average 48%. Now, for those of you that went to public schools and are not really good at doing math in your head, let's just go ahead and round 48% up to 50%. And again, 50% for those of you who went to public schools is half. Okay? If you had $1 and I asked you for half of that dollar, you would give me 50 cents. Are we tracking? So let's apply that to this sentence that was given to Mr. Mexican scumbag who murdered Agent Terry. So based upon history, based upon what we know, he could serve maybe 15 years, maybe 18. 18 years for murder. Now, you might think, at least he's going to be in jail, Paul. Really? Really? At least he's going to be in jail? So congratulations, American taxpayer. So you, as an American taxpayer, get to pay for this scumbag to live in a maximum security prison for the next 15 to 30 years. Yay. And what does it cost to house a prisoner in maximum security, Jared? Like $30,000 a year, something like that? It's not. I'm
going to research that real quick. I'll let you know.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap. Now, you're going to say, well, come on, Paul, let's cut us a break. Oh, okay. All right. All right, now, if you live in a state that has, quote unquote, truth in sentencing laws, now they have come up with it. People have gotten a little bit fed up. And so what they've done is they've forced the states to come up with, quote, truth in sentencing laws where people actually have to kind of serve the term that they were given. Well, but also coming from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, let me see, the BJS report, it says under truth in sentencing laws, you are required to serve up to 85% of your sentence. So instead of serving 10 years, you have to serve 8.5 years. So whatever happened to 30-year sentence being a 30-year sentence? I know, that's crazy, right? The nasty little secret or the dirty little secret is in 5 years, you won't remember this because you have such a short time, attention span. Everyone does. So what they do is they put this turd in jail for, quote, 30 years. He probably will never do 30 years. They put him in there, and then you move on with your life, and we're not supposed to think about it anymore. You're not supposed to think about the Brian Terry murder anymore and the fact that he was murdered with a gun that the ATF, the United States Department of Justice, deliberately walked into the hands of Mexican cartels, Mexican drug cartels. So you're not supposed to think about that, America. You're supposed to forget. Don't think about it. It'll hurt you.
So I found the average annual cost for inmates, and for high security, the average annual cost is $33,930. So multiply that by at least 15, or maybe at most 15. that's pretty expensive that's how much you're going to be paying for this man to eat food, watch TV, probably work out every day.
Be given free college education and therapy and all that stuff. Medical. Oh, don't forget dental and medical.
Probably continue to be able to sell drugs.
And continue to be a scumbag thug. So congratulations, America. Good on you. Now, one of the things, we we didn't do a recommended reading in the first one, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw out in addition to the books that we just talked about, I'm going to go ahead and throw this one out to you. It's called The Federalist Papers. You may have heard of it. You may have heard the term The Federalist Papers. And you're like, well, what's that all about? Or that was something that was written a long, long time ago, and it doesn't really apply to today. Well, the authors of The Federalist Papers, and this was the written argument to convince the states and the delegates from the states to approve the Constitution of the United States of America, to unify the colonies. Now, if you know your history, and you should know your history, that during the Revolutionary War, people think that we were governed by the Constitution during the Revolutionary War. We were not. There was no Constitution until after the end of the American Revolution. During the Revolution, we had the Declaration of Independence, and then we had the Articles of Confederation, where we bound together the original 13 colonies. Well, after the war was over, there was a lot of talk about separating and either being just a bunch of individual colony/states, independent states, or loose 3 or 4 confederations. You had a Southern Confederation, a Northeastern Confederation, like a New England Confederation, Midwest, and so forth. And what Alexander Hamilton and James Madison and John Jay did is they wrote the Federalist Papers, and it was essentially an argument for the passage of the United States Constitution. And, obviously we know that did pass and become the law of the land. But when you read this book, what they did is they took the papers and they compiled them in book form. When you read it, you will realize that these guys actually predicted the future. In the book, they predicted the circumstances that led up to the American Civil War. They also, and this is what's scary, is some of the warnings that were put forth by Jay and Hamilton and Madison about what would happen if the people sought security and safety over liberty. Think about that. Where have you heard that before? Well, Ben Franklin's got a very famous quote about, those who would be willing to sacrifice essential liberty for the promise of safety deserve neither. Well, Madison talked about that, and Hamilton. I'm not sure which one of them specifically quoted it. It was Alexander Hamilton I quoted, actually on Facebook here, and about those who would be willing to give up their safety or to give up their liberty for the promise of safety. You need to do if you consider yourself an American patriot, if you really genuinely care about the future of this nation, you need to understand how and why it was founded in the way it was. The United States of America was not founded by accident. It was extremely deliberate. The people who founded this nation had a very, very thorough understanding of human history, the history of nations and governments, because believe it or not, back then they actually took their education seriously. Most of them did, and they knew and understood the history of Greece and the democratic republics that they had in Greece, and they knew the errors. They knew why they didn't, and they knew about the Roman Republic. And a lot of people don't understand that Rome was set up to be a republic, and they knew what had happened in England and so forth. And it's it's a long read because it's written in 1788 speak. And what's amazing is we like to think that we're so much. Jared, are kids today so much smarter than we were 20 years ago?
I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Really? You don't think they are?
No, I think that the intelligence level is actually on a steady decline.
Yeah. Somehow we're supposed to believe that because a kid knows how to play with an Xbox and program an iPod, that he is intelligent.
Didn't you write an article about that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But, the ability to manipulate gadgets does not determine intelligence. And what we have today is we have a bunch of kids that are growing up like educated chimpanzees, and they know how to manipulate gadgets, but they have absolutely no clue as to human history, the history of this nation, or even to how to use the language properly. But I digress. So what you guys can do after you listen to this, whether you listen to it on iTunes or on IPP Podcast, or if you're smart, if you're a hip dude or dudette, you've already downloaded the Student of the Gun mobile app, and you're listening to it directly from the Student of the Gun mobile app, whether it's on your Android phone or your iPhone or your iPad, what have you. You can listen to us direct every single week. Now, folks, let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about some more gun-related stuff. Now, this next segment is going to be brought to you by our good friends at Crossbreed Holsters and also our friends at XS Sights. And this, we have a situation here that was very unfortunate, and we're going to talk about it just briefly. In Louisiana, a 15-year-old has been charged with murder of a gentleman in what city was this? I think it was it Baton Rouge, Jared? It was in Lafayette Parish. This is Lafayette Parish Sheriff's authorities have charged 4 juveniles, and one of them has been charged with murder. This was a carjacking murder. And the reason we bring it up is because this guy was leaving work, going out, just finished his shift, walks out to his car, and a 15-year-old piece of human debris murders him in order to try and steal his car. And I bet you don't know about this. I bet you if you don't live in Louisiana, you probably have no idea that this happened. And the dateline for this story, we were going to talk about it, I think, last week, and we missed it because we just got so full of it. We had so much on our plate. But this is February 3rd, 2014. So this occurred, it was reported the day after. But so the dateline on this story, though, 15-year-old charged with murder and jockey lot shooting. So, well, Paul, why are you bringing this up? Why are you bringing me down, man? Why you want to do that? Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because you probably don't know about it. And if you don't know about it, it's because a citizen, a guy who's got a job, walking to his car, gets murdered by a 15-year-old piece of human debris. Let us say that it was reversed. Let us say that this guy was an armed citizen, and that in the middle of the crime, of the robbery, of the attempted carjacking, of the armed aggravated robbery, the good guy produces a gun and shoots the kid. And you're like, oh, yeah. Well, are you allowed to do that? Then good thing he didn't shoot him, because then he would be in trouble because he was just a juvenile. Yeah, good thing he didn't shoot him. Instead, he just died. Oh, you're being hard, Paul. My question to you is this. You conceal carry people out there. Would you not defend your life because you think the person who's about to murder you may not be yet 18 years of age? Does it make a difference legally? When it comes to justifiable use of force, do you have to check IDs before you save your own life? I don't know. What do you think? The point is this. If this guy would have shot this guy, what do you think? Come on, folks. What do you think would have happened? Would they have gone and got this scumbag kid? Would they have gone and got his little junior high picture when he was 12 and put that on the nightly news and said, poor little Jimmy Scumbag was murdered by this evil vigilante man who carries a gun? I don't know. Ask yourself that question. But, folks, arm yourself. If you're not armed, shame on you. You should be. If you live in an area that forbids you as a citizen to be armed, shame on you. You're taking chances with your life that you shouldn't take. But everybody has a life to live, Everybody has choices to make, and you make yours. But just keep that in mind. All right, moving right along. We got some good news here. This comes to us from Oklahoma. That's right, Oklahoma. The good news is Oklahoma proposes what they're calling a Piers-Morgan bill, or aptly named a limey scumbag bill. And if you don't like it, too bad. Go listen to NPR. But the Oklahoma Senator Nathan Dahm has proposed Bill 1473, also known as the Piers-Morgan bill. The proposed law would remove the requirement for state owners to obtain permits to carry guns in public. Now, what is that? Constitutional carry. Now, this is not passed yet. It's just proposed. But I think it is a good step forward. And the reason they've called it that is because Mr. Morgan, CNN correspondent Morgan, believes that you should be disarmed. You should live just like they do in merry old England, where the people are comfortable slaves. They're essentially tax slaves to the government. And when Johnny Jihad shows up with a sharp object and decides to saw your head off in public, your only defense is to pull out your phone and record it. That's what happens in merry old England, Mr. Piers-Morgan. And we also would assume that Mr. Piers-Morgan has never been in a position where he had to defend his own life against a felonious attack. So good news, some good news there from Oklahoma. We hope that gets some traction. If you are one of our listeners up there it's the Sooner State, right? Oklahoma? Is that the Sooner State? I don't know. Maybe. I need to go back to my 6th grade geography class. But, yeah, check that out right there. Oklahoma. Oh, doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-doo. Oh, here's one. Here we got this one from Gary, Indiana. Made famous in the Broadway musical what? Jared has no idea. He has no idea what Broadway musical made Gary, Indiana famous. Do you, Jared?
I have no clue, and I'm proud of that.
It was The Music Man, Gary, Indiana. Well, despite the happy-go-lucky song where they talk all about Gary, Indiana, and Gary, Indiana, as we've known for a long time, is a very, very violent city. It probably has one of the highest crime rates in the state of Indiana. It's a suckhole. It's terrible. Well, and this is the irony of this, and we get this from WGN-TV News out of Chicago. That's right, Chicago. We know that all the violence in Chicago is because of too much freedom in the surrounding areas, and we need to curb that freedom in the surrounding areas. But a robbery occurred at the Safe and Sound Senior Center Social Club. That's right. It was called the Safe and Sound Senior Center Social Club, Incorporated in Gary, Indiana. 5 people were shot inside the senior center when the suspect, a 23-year-old Chicago man... Now what? You mean a 23-year-old Chicago man had a gun? That can't be. That must be a lie. Because we know that because Chicago has the strictest gun control laws in the nation, thereby it is the safest place in the nation to be. Don't we know that? You mean it's not? That doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe that makes sense to Piers-Morgan. But this is kind of a go team moment, but it's a go team moment with an asterisk. A 23-year-old Chicago scumbag walked into the Safe and Sound Senior Center and started ordering people onto the floor and opened fire on them. 4 men, ages ranging from 43 to 76 years old, were shot. After the scumbag opened fire, someone in the club, who has not been identified, pulled out their own gun, their own lawfully carried gun, and fired at the robber, striking him. He has been captured, and he is currently in custody. So, on one hand, you've kind of got the go-team moment because an armed citizen shot the bad guy and made him stop committing felonies. On the other hand, this guy was able to shoot 4 people before bullets impacted into his body and he had to stop. So I guess the question is, how many of you out there concealed carry people? How many of you out there, and this is a personal thing, but how many of you out there have gone through the scenarios in your mind? You're like, okay, well, I'm out, I'm in a restaurant, and I'm with my family, and I have a gun, and somebody comes in and they want to rob the place. What should I do? Should I just, be a good victim? Give up my wallet, don't start any trouble, what have you. Because, they're not specifically trying to harm me as an individual. They're just robbing the establishment. Okay, you can do that. You absolutely can do that. You never have to use your gun. You never have to. But let's say you're in a situation where you do that. You see a crime in progress. You see a felonious crime, a deadly force crime in progress. Someone, a criminal, is using a firearm to rob people. And you decide, well, I'm just going to be a good witness. I have a gun on, but I don't want, if I use my gun, then bad things might happen. Okay, I got you. Bad things already are happening because people are being robbed. But that guy gets agitated and he murders the clerk. You're like, well, shouldn't have been the clerk that day. And you had the ability to stop that from happening, but you chose not to. You have the right not to act. Do you also have to shave? Do you have to look into a mirror each day, knowing that you had the ability to stop that murder from happening, but you chose not to? And you say, well, that's easy for you to say, Paul. No, it's not easy for me to say. It's called civic duty. It's called responsibility to your fellow man. If you saw someone bleeding to death, would you say, hey, not my responsibility? It's somebody else's job to stop you from bleeding to death. And you don't have to act. You're not required to act. And some people out there say, well, I'm not a professional. It's not my job. I'm not a police officer. No, you're not. Now, this situation in Gary, Indiana, we don't know. The person with the lawfully carried, handgun might not have known what was going on until the bad guy started shooting. That could be the case. We don't know enough yet because it's still, quote, under investigation. But how long do you wait? Well, I'll give you a little tidbit here. If you get caught with your pants down, you get caught in a situation where, the bad guy has the gun, it's there, and it's out, and you don't have yours in hand. You're like, okay, I got that. What should you do? What should you not do? Well, you can wait, but what happens if you wait that one moment too long? What happens if they decide, everyone up and move into the freezer, move into the back room, go here, get down on the floor? There have been several situations in the United States where criminals have come in to commit a robbery, told people to get down on the floor, and then once everyone was down on the floor with their face down, started shooting them. Are you going to be that victim? Are you going to let it get to that point? You may not have a choice. And the old program was just be a good witness. Well, that works great until the bad guy decides there aren't going to be any witnesses. Then what do you do? It happened in a bank in Detroit where the guy came in to rob the place, made everyone get on their bellies, and then started shooting him in the back of the head. It happened in Virginia Tech. It happened at the Kenyon Mall. It happens all over the place, folks. I know we've given you a lot of books to read, but a really good book is called On Killing by Colonel Grossman. And in it, he says how if you turn your eyes away from a killer, away from a criminal, away from a felon, you actually make it easier for them to kill you. If you submit, you make it psychologically easier for that person to see you as a subhuman or a non-human and to kill you. Sorry, it's psychology. It's proven. It's been proven over and over and over again. If you want to argue that, argue with it with your buddies. But the fact is, when you submit and you become subservient and you look away, when you turn your face to the ground, you make it easier for them to put a bullet into you. Just load that up in the back of your mind and think about that for a second. We had another situation. We had a go team moment where, was this in Chicago, Jared? The off-duty officer with the 3 pieces of human debris walked up to him at a gas pump, and he was an off-duty, I believe he was Chicago sergeant. And this was a good violence of action type of a situation. And you may have seen it by now. It's been all over the internet where off-duty sergeant, he's pumping gas. 3 turds come up to him. One pulls a gun on him. And these turds, these pieces of human filth are so brazen that while the one's got a gun on him, the other walks over to his car, opens the door, is going to start stealing his property at a gas station, at a gas pump. That's how villainous and brazen these scumbags have become here in the year 2014. Well, the officer reached into, he was being demanded. They wanted money, they wanted his valuables, and so forth. And while he was feigning getting his money out with his left hand, he reached around the back, pulled his pistol out, and he shot him dead. I don't know if he died, but he shot him down and he stopped. And the other guys decided it was no longer fun to be a scumbag, and they fled and ran away. And it's a pretty fast-moving video. It doesn't last very long, but it's a go-team moment, and at least one of those scumbags has a life lesson, something to grow on. Oh, we got Jared, we've got a vagination report. I know you're thinking, oh man, you're killing me, Paul. You haven't had a vagination report lately. Well, we have a vagination report for you, and we haven't been wanting to talk about the Olympics because, quite frankly, snore. There are more important things going on in the world right now than the Olympics. The Olympics long ago became this United Nations bash America. We don't care about the Olympics, but we thought this was funny because one of the U.S. Olympic skaters' costumes, they did a James Bond theme. This was a couple skate, and the guy was wearing an empty shoulder holster, a.k.a. James Bond. Didn't have an actual gun, because Lord in heaven, people would just have freaked out. But it wasn't bad enough. He had an empty holster on, and people started taking to the Twittersphere and all that about, well, Americans are gun loons, and he could have done without it. And it's like, oh, way to go, America. Way to work guns into your ice dancing routine. And like, the empty holster, which is essentially a movie prop, people were just peeing their collective Twitter pants over the fact that this guy had an empty holster on himself. Folks, if your psyche is so fragile that the sight of an empty shoulder holster on an ice dancer or whatever figure skater, that offends you, you win this week's Vagination Report. And write to Jared at P.O. Box 405 Boulder, Colorado, and he'll give you a special Kotex gift pack. So just send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to P.O. Box 405 Boulder, Colorado, and Jared will send you a special Kotex gift pack.
I think they'll need a little bit bigger package than an envelope.
Oh, we got a little bit more. We're going to go slave state news. We've got in the current.com. They're very concerned, and we talked about this. It says untold thousands flout gun registration law. That's right. Untold thousands. And they don't know how many for sure. They don't know how many for sure have flouted. And they use the term flout in the title. I think that's so cool up there in Connecticut. But untold thousands flout gun registration law. And we talked about this, and we even talked about the fact that they've introduced a potential amnesty bill to let all you gun owners with those evil assault weapons, those guns that have to be registered, we need to do an amnesty. So the people that just didn't have the opportunity to come in and register themselves as comfortable slaves to get on your slave registry, we didn't catch enough of them. Well, the secret, it's not even a dirty little secret. What they know is it's not that the people didn't have the opportunity. It wasn't that they were, quote, ignorant of the law. What they know is that thousands upon thousands of people decided that rather than register their guns, they would just become de facto criminals. And in Connecticut right now, according to the story and previous stories that we've read, failure to comply with this new totalitarian, tyrannical law here, this unconstitutional law. Oh, that's no, the Connecticut State Supreme Court said that it is constitutional. Really? Okay. They are a Class D felon now in Connecticut if they get caught. Now, here's the thing. And you're like, what's the thing, Paul? I'll tell you what the thing is. In the various stories that have come out of Connecticut and the surrounding areas about this situation, the state police and the politicians have proposed that ways that how can they find these people that don't have or that have not registered their evil magazines and their evil rifles. And they've considered going through the gun registry to find these people and to, at very least, send them letters letting them know that they're currently in violation of the law, at very least. So, folks, keep a close eye on Connecticut because, well, first, we already know that California has a gun Gestapo. They have a gun confiscation Gestapo. They've got a team of people, of bureaucrats that whose job it is to go around and confiscate guns from people who have been, quote, disqualified by the state. You may have been disqualified by the state and not know it. So if we see that in what's going to happen? What is going to happen when they decide to form a task force to go around and start enforcing this law? People that got up yesterday morning and were a productive citizen and owned a piece of property that has been deemed illegal by the commissar. We're going to start putting these people in prisons and jails. What are we going to do? We're going to break their doors down at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to do no-knock raids on people because we think they might own a magazine that holds too many rounds. You tell me, folks. You tell me. What is happening in your country? What is going on in the United States of America? But yeah, we thought that was funny that they're like, oh, well, we think that people may not understand the law. No, they understand it. And a lot of them have said that they're not going to play. So keep a close eye on on Connecticut right there. Now, when it comes to, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys one more before I let you go. I'm going to give you one more. And this comes from when I read the Federalist Papers. And I was reading it, and I actually read, after I read the Federalist Papers, I read an article by that came from Hillsdale College. If you guys don't get the monthly newsletter from Hillsdale College, you really should. There's always a lot of really good information in there. And Larry P. Arnn from Hillsdale College wrote this column, and he essentially said how the original founding documents were very purposely and deliberately written to be understood by every citizen, by the common man. They were relatively short. He said, I don't have the exact figures, but it was only 1,000, 1,500 words were used in the original laws, such as the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, the Northwest Compact, and so forth. They were specifically kept very simple, very direct, and straightforward so that every citizen could understand their meaning. Now think about this. To contrast that to today. The quote, unquote, Affordable Care Act, I believe, has over 300,000 words in the bill. Think about that. our bills and laws being written today deliberately so lengthy, so convoluted that you as the citizen will just give up. I mean, how many of you have time to sit and read a 300,000 word bill? Even if you had the bill in front of you, would you sit down and read a 300,000 word bill? We know that our congressmen and senators don't read them before they vote on them, and they know that you won't either. And you say, well, okay, what's your point, Paul? What's the point? The point is this. You as a citizen have to be informed. You have to understand. You need to know what's going on. And when these bills are passed, when they put so much verbiage in them so that you couldn't possibly, you have to hire an attorney to understand it, is that by accident? Is that just a coincidence? Or is it deliberate? What is trying to be hidden in these bills? You're like, well, I can't do anything about it. Yes, you can. Why do you allow people to go to your state houses and the national house and do that? Well, what am I supposed to do? Get active and get rid of these turds. That's what you're supposed to do. And you should also avail yourself. And there is this thing called the Constitution, and the Federalist Papers that I have. It has a complete United States Constitution written in it. I sat down one evening and I read the entire Constitution plus all of the amendments from the very beginning to right now. And it took me one evening to sit down and read it. Not a week, not a month. One evening sitting in a chair with a glass of scotch, and I read the whole thing. And if you haven't read it, you're not the patriot that you say you are. Because how can you call yourself a constitutionalist? How can you wrap yourself in the flag and talk about I'm pro-Second Amendment if you've never even read the Bill of Rights? Sit down and read it, know what your rights are. Because if you don't know what your rights are, if you're ignorant of those, how do you expect to defend them? How do you expect to protect them? How do you expect your elected representatives to follow the rule of law if you don't even know what that rule is? It's not that complex. It's not that complex. It's meant, when people tell you, oh, it's complicated, you wouldn't understand, that should offend the heck out of you. That should offend the crap out of you. Because when they say that, what they're saying is, you're too stupid, peasant, to understand. Go play your fantasy football. Go watch your American Idol. Let us take your money and do what we want. That's what they're saying to you when they say, well, it's complicated, you wouldn't understand. Don't buy it anymore. Stop taking that excuse. Well, like the Fast and Furious deal, we're told, oh, it were mistakes and it's complicated and you don't understand. No, we do understand. That's the problem. We understand what the problem is. And the problem, Mr. Congressman, Mr. Senator, is you, Ms. Congressman, Ms. Senator. The problem is you. The fact is you are not a ruler, and we are not the peasant class. All right. So, folks, oh, man, we didn't talk about it last time, but don't forget, Student of the Gun Television is on Dish Network, channel 266, every Monday night at 9 o'clock. Check it out. If you don't have Dish Network, that is cool, too. All you have to do is go to studentofthegun.com, and Jared keeps you updated with the latest shows. You can watch the archives. You can catch up on shows you missed in the archives. Don't forget about the mobile app, sponsored by our friends, delivered for free to you by our buddies at Century Arms. You can check that out. What else do we have going, Jared? We've got, we got the books. Don't forget, we've got the 2 new books that are available right now. Armed and Smart, A Beginner's Guide to Concealed Carry, and Armed and Smarter, an advanced concealed carry weapons and training. And if you go to studentofthegun.com, over on the right-hand side, there's a little picture of the new books. Give them as a gift to your friends and relatives and what have you. How many of you have that guy or girl or first person in your life that always has questions for you? You know what? Buy them the book. They'll be good to go. And you can get all of that at studentofthegun.com. And you can follow us on, Jared, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vimeo. Go to the mobile app. There's a thing called social media, or follow us or something like that. It has everything on there.
That's right, because we're busy all week long, every week. And the latest article up there that is on Student of the Gun right now is torture testing. Just how much abuse should your gear be able to take? You might want to check that out. And you're like, well, how much abuse should my gear take? I don't know.
And coming up in a day or two is training and gear you hope you will never need.
That's right. Our friend, it's actually going to be a guest article, a guest review that was submitted by our friend Anthony Navarro. And you may know the name Anthony Navarro because if you're a fan of reality TV, of what was it Top Shot? Yeah, Anthony was on Top Shot,
finalist in Top Shot season 1, and he
was on One Man Army.
I think he won the One Man Army.
He was on One Man Army. Anyway, he's been on TV. He's a firearms instructor. He's a really good guy. And he's actually had to be there and do that when it comes to traumatic medicine training and traumatic medicine application. So keep an eye on studentofthegun.com for that. That article is going to be out, like I said, this coming week after you hear this radio episode. Now, folks, we appreciate, as always, you being out there listening to us. Oh, if you are listening to us on iTunes, if you're an iTunes guy, we would ask you, if you're a subscriber and you feel generous, just take a moment and rate the show, because iTunes do track the ratings. They track the stars and the ratings and all that good stuff. So we'd appreciate if you're an iTunes person, take a moment to do that. If you're not an iTunes person, the IPP podcast player is a really good thing for your Android phone. We've had great success with that. It's much better than that other app that has an S, that starts with an S. Ugh. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And leave us a review as well. I like to read the reviews. I don't care if you like us or hate us. I like to read both kinds. Especially, I think we have a few reviews on the app, but nobody's really taken time to.
Yeah, if you like the app, let your friends know.
Yeah, I like to kind of read that stuff, and then I can cater to what you guys like and what you don't like. So that would be great.
And don't forget, if you want to be.
Let me crumple my water bottle.
All right, that was my water bottle. Shut up. If you want to be the good guy of the week, and you go to forums.studentofthegun.com or forums.studentofthegun, you can post your questions or your inquiries there, and Jared will pick them out. We're sorry that we can't pick out every single one every week, but we do go through there. We do take a hard look at them. And who knows, sometimes when we talk about stuff on whether it's an article or whether it's a conversation we have on Student of the Gun Radio, it's based upon suggestions and things that you guys put out there. You guys have been fantastic. You're always keeping us up to date. You are eyes and ears out there in slave state America and free America. So just let us know. Now, folks, that brings us to the conclusion of this episode. I know you're sad. You're on your treadmill and you're like, oh, thank goodness he's going to stop talking so I can get off the treadmill now. But remember, folks, you're a beginner once, but you should be a student for life.